Hello, good afternoon to our listeners. Welcome to the Energy Talks. That's a series of podcasts sponsored by iSafety. And I'm glad to carry on with the series today with a very important actor and player in the green hydrogen and low carbon and decarbonization strategy. And I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Abdullah Al Abri. Welcome.
Thank you, Lionel. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. A few words about Dr. Abdullah Al Abri. He's the Vice President of Sustainability of the Sohar Port and Freezone company. We've known each other for a number of years now, Dr. Abdullah, so it's a very special moment and interview today to be together and talk about low carbon energy, which is a passion we share, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
And we'll probably walk back to what you did before your current responsibility. And before that, you were with the International Energy Agency and based in my country of origin, in Paris, France. And we, of course, knew each other already at that point and had a chance to share and exchange views on how the decarbonization would basically progress in the world already back some years ago. Prior to the IEA, you worked for, you were actually the executive director of EJAD. That is pretty much when I first met you. And the first topic we discussed when we met here in Muscat was the green hydrogen roadmap and how this would go about with all the stakeholders at that time that were concerned by that strategy. Prior to that, you worked for PDO as well, so you are an experienced person from the energy sector, which is very helpful, of course, in our discussion today, because you have a broad view on energies in the broad sense of the term. And prior to that, you also worked in Perth, in West Australia, working for Woodside Energy. So really delighted to have you today. We'll cover, we'll follow a logical chronology and roadmap of thoughts, starting from a strategic point of view, going down to the port of Sohar and what's going on there in the port of Sohar and the contribution of that very important, prominent port into the decarbonization effort of the country. And then we'll probably also dive a bit more specifically into the low carbon energy and hydrogen as well. And then we'll probably conclude with some messages for our listeners. Dr. Abdullah, you're okay with that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, very good. We have 30 minutes or so, a little bit less, to talk about that. I'd like to start with the strategic level and get your thoughts today in your current responsibility as a Vice President of Sustainability in one of the most important industrial ports in this region. Your view on the decarbonization strategy and roadmap. And how you see also moving forward in the objective of zero carbon. If you could start as a warm-up.
Thank you so much, Lionel, for the generous introduction, but also for the opportunity to be really exchanging thoughts today on what I think is a really interesting topic. And I thank also the organizers of the talks. I think this is something that needs to be continued. I think this is really nice to exchange views on the prominent aspects of what we are all facing, whether it's decarbonization, but also social challenges, any other important topics. So with that, Oman is a producer economy. It's one of the prominent producers in OPEC Plus. And obviously Oman has launched its Vision 2040 a few years back. The vision calls for a prosperous population, so very prosperous, competitive economy, and sustainable environment. These are the three key fundamentals in the Vision 2040. And then for the sustainable environment, for the competitive economy, and also for the prosperous population, Oman thought as a government that there need to be a net zero target in line with the aspirations of the population, but also in line with the directions of where the world is heading. So Oman has indeed published its net zero targets, and that is by 2050. So the vision, in my view, is the compass that is helping us to move forward with clarity, and the net zero is in many ways the destination that lumps together all these kind of aspects into a very nice environmental friendly way. With that, the establishment of the Net Zero Center that was announced earlier this year is really a major milestone. So Oman has really evolved over the journey, over the time, from the pledges to the policies to establishing the targets and the governance of the net zero, and that's through the establishment of Oman Net Zero Center. So I think it's really clarifying the roadmaps, the sectoral roadmaps, whether it's industry, mobility, power, oil and gas, and so on and so forth, of how all of these sectors should really work towards 2050 to achieve carbon neutrality. Now, that translates obviously to our roadmaps as the biggest industrial cluster in Oman and one of the biggest in the GCC. So we are really also, we've established our roadmaps to achieve neutrality by 2050. And in our roadmaps, we're really focusing on the energy and resource efficiency as a start, as a natural start, and then moving towards renewables and electrification, and then towards biofuels, and then scaling up towards hydrogen with all its color spectrum, and the CCUS. We are really sizable in many ways, sizable in terms of area, sizable in terms of investments, sizable in terms of excellence and people's expertise, but also very much strategically located in Oman. So we're outside the Strait of Hormuz. We are part of the Gulf, but outside the Gulf. We're really connected to the east and the west. And we have governance that's world-class. After all, we have partnership with the European port that's so much reputable, Port of Rotterdam. So we really follow some of the best international practices in terms of governance, disclosure, and transparency. So that said, we're really looking at decarbonization and sustainability as something that would really strengthen us, provide us with competitiveness and contestability. And that's our focus.
Yeah, excellent. And I think you've summarized quite well those key elements, the geostrategic location of Oman, and in particular the port of Sohar, the existence of an established, matured industrial cluster in the port as well. Just building on that, I'd like to get your thoughts on the criticality, the significance of having the most developed industrial cluster in Oman is the port of Sohar. Importation, exportation, access to energy, and so on. What is, in your view, the significance of the contribution of that industrial cluster to the transformation that you highlighted in the energy sector?
Yeah, so indeed we're really significant. So we've attracted investments worth more than $30 billion over the last 20 years. We've developed integrated supply chains in the metals cluster, but also in the food, petrochemicals, and logistics. And we're really responsible for more than 70% of the trade that comes into Oman. So every 7 products that come to Oman are imported through the port of Sohar. We are really a sizable engine for economic transactions and employment. So developing that social and innovation kind of expertise evolving around those industrial clusters and industrial sectors in Sohar is some of the best that we're doing. And obviously this sets us into a really strong foundation. That said, we are not starting from zero. We are not selling promise, rather we're selling progress, right? So we're really starting from a strength. And that said, that shaped up our positioning into the sustainability and into the future. For one, we're really taking bold steps into attracting and establishing bold moves, and that includes the Marsa LNG project. That's really a bold move. It's a first LNG facility, bunkering facility in the Middle East. It's a joint project between Total Energies and OQ.
Yes.
With very sizable investments. So that's really a bold move. The second one is we're installing the first shore power project in the port of Sohar. So that helps the ships when they're docking to really connect to the grid, shut off some of their auxiliary engines and reduce emissions by that. So those are some examples of the bold moves. We're also pushing into the decarbonization, as I said, so looking into all the levers. We're currently using biofuels into our tugboats. That has reduced our emissions by 20%. We've got small-scale renewable projects that are connected to some of the industries in-house. We've got the first installed electrolyzers in Oman, and of course I can claim in the region. So electrolyzers are really there in the industrial setups. So those, we're really looking at all the decarbonization initiatives. And the third one, as a positioning, is we're really working hard to establish a clean technology manufacturing cluster. So that includes the polysilicon manufacturing, a project that will be commissioned in a few months, a $1.6 billion investment. We have signed and progress is ongoing on the construction for a PV manufacturing facility. We're really working hard to close the value chain for solar now. We are at advanced stages to attract investments on the ingots and the wafers. And then we'll move to aspects of the wind, and we'll move to aspects of the hydrogen, including electrolyzers. So these are kind of the strategic positioning for us. A, focus on the bold moves, because we need to be contestable, we need to be different. And B, decarbonize with all the technologies, and that would help us be competitive. And C, help with the industrial growth by attracting really contestable, something unique in terms of industries, and that's the clean technology manufacturing.
Okay, thank you. That's a pretty comprehensive overview of the building blocks of the strategy of Sohar, actually, which is really, I do remember my first trip to this country coming from London. I landed at the Muscat airport, took a cab, went to Sohar. That was in December 2003. So that's interesting to imagine what was there, what was going there on site. They were excavating the soil to build the power plant. They were soon going to build the cooling water facility and then the refinery and so on and so forth. Yeah. So coming from Europe, to me, it was extraordinary to see that in 21, 22 years, seeing a cluster, the way you described it, with the ambition looking forward, coming out of ground, of the soil, in such a short period of time. Yeah. In industrial scale, 20 years is short. Yeah. It was extremely aggressive. So, of course, the Port of Sohar company is the recipient of that, and of course bearing that ambition, bearing that history of fast growth. So I have personally all reason to believe that the next 20 years is going to be really interesting in terms of the contribution of the Port of Sohar into the decarbonization. I'd like to pick on a few of those very important examples you mentioned, Marsa LNG bunkering. To me, that of course the operation will be decarbonized. The fuel itself is what it is; it's LNG, but the operation is actually low carbon, and that's an interesting move. That's basically additive to any other renewable energy project. But you mentioned efficiency as well, and you also mentioned another important figure: 70% of trades are basically via the port of Sohar. So for sure, there is also a number of low-hanging fruits in terms of efficiency, conversion of maybe traditional, conventional energy form into decarbonized form. How would you say is and that might be a bit of a difficult, precise question, but how would you say is the percentage of CO2 reduction from energy efficiency versus maybe switching or moving into decarbonized form of energy?
Yeah, it's interesting, and indeed, I'll build on what you've said at the beginning, and thank you for visiting the port of Sohar in 2023, right?
23, yeah, yes.
Or 2003, right?
2003, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
So indeed, last year we celebrated 20 years in existence. And indeed, the growth in Sohar Port is really impressive. We surpassed the initial plans that, the plans were suggesting that will not be full now, rather maybe half capacity in the port. And here we are today that we are really almost full.
Yeah.
Indeed. So it's one of the interesting, amazing stories. And our SAGR, the compound annual growth rate in the port of Sohar, is one of the really highest, among the highest in the world. That's very much comparable to the Far East and some of the Middle East ports and industrial areas. So, to your question, indeed, because of the fast growth, there's always an opportunity to really in a way, go suboptimal or always look for ways to really optimize. We are expecting that we could achieve 5% reduction of energy use by 2030. And indeed, few things are already in progress. So that's the night on demand, that's optimization of the cooling systems, that's the optimization of the wastewater. So really, we're working closely with our tenants on this. We've established almost 2 years ago Sohar Net Zero Alliance, SINZA. Sohar Net Zero Alliance is made up of the major tenants at the port and the free zone. And obviously, we're working closely with them to really see what's possible on how to achieve and start with the resource and energy efficiency. It's interesting also in some of these places that we are seeing that we could repurpose some of the existing infrastructure to accommodate the transition. And with that, that's already a resource efficiency. So instead of building a new infrastructure, we just use the existing one, but repurposed, right?
Yeah.
So that's on the energy efficiency. And we see a major growth on the electrification and renewables. As I said, we've got already some of the small-scale projects, solar power connected to industries in the industrial area. But also we're exploring the generation of hydropower. So we've got the cooling canal that runs through the port. The speeds of the canal are really exciting, so really, interesting. We are exploring with the technology providers, with our partners, to see how can we put and install light turbines on the water canal, and with that we can generate, I would say, a decent amount of energy. It could decarbonize up to 1/3 of the consumption of sizable companies like Majis, which is the utility provider. So really sizable in terms of energy potential power generation. We are also exploring, and again, this is a project that we are looking at from efficiency plus innovation perspective, which is the waste heat recovery. I think it's no surprise that industrial clusters use a lot of energy for the production of heat, right? That's fundamental in the industrial processes. So we've really mapped out all the exothermic, which is the processes that are generating heat, and endothermic processes again within the port, and those are the processes that absorb heat. We put together the material balance, energy balance, and we're looking into establishing a infrastructure to really capture the heat and then utilize that heat for heating, so heating other processes, or for cooling.
Okay.
Right? So cooling some of the administrative buildings within the port. Like, for example, the administration of Jindal or OQ or Vale or others. So that's something interesting. We're shaping up as we speak, and I think there is a big potential in this.
Yeah. That's interesting you mentioned hydropower, because one would not expect that in a flat land, because coming from Europe, you think in terms of hydropower either in big rivers or mountains and lakes and so on. But there is a continuous flow of cooling water, which is quite significant in Sohar. So what I like about that project is the continuity. It's not intermittent as the wind would be or solar energy, but it's continuous. So that also drives a number of decisions of what you can do with that power generated, which is carbon free, right? It requires investment, of course, but so that's I would say that addresses nicely the competitiveness of and the component of how Sohar will continue to be the most relevant industrial cluster, one of the dominant one in the region. On that token, actually, how would you compare the port of Sohar, mature, well-established, with other relatively well-established or even older ports in the Middle East? And I'm thinking about Al Jubail or Yambu or Jebel Ali, which I know very well because my office was based there for a long time in the past. So how would you compare? What would be the competitive advantage, in particular, of Sohar relative to the other ports?
Right. So indeed, there are tons of industrial of ports and industrial areas in the GCC. It's a hotspot, and Sohar successfully, with the support of all partners, including the government, the private sector, and the technology providers, service providers, have really grown to be what it is today. So it's one of the biggest, I would say, three in the region. We are really established. We are not so much a transshipment hub, but we're really a pure, or the majority were a pure industrial area. We've established so far really integrated supply chains, so that helps the input-output relationship, and that's why investors are really knocking our doors just to see that you guys have got a slot in this fully developed supply chain. I want to invest in that slot, right? So we're, it's a lot of door knocks, with us, because investors, people understand, that we have something to offer. That's the integrated industrial clustering. But also people know that we're really innovative. So, and again, that's where the MARSA, that's where the technology manufacturing comes into play. And thirdly, we're really so much connected to the other industrial areas in Oman, but also across the GCC and the world. Obviously, the rail link that is coming up will also strengthen that relationship. Yep. And it's becoming by 2028. So it's not far away from us. And obviously, we see a lot of value, obviously, to integrate with the other industrial clusters in the region, right? Mm-hmm. The more the supply chains develop, the better for everybody. And that's the lesson that we got from oil and gas development. Oil and gas was really, or is still really competitive because it was developed kind of simultaneously in the region. And that development helps everybody. So what's distinctive in Sohar Port, and I think this kind of was the theme of the discussion in a recent GCC workshop in Salalah that I was taking really part in, is that we are really ready. We've got developed infrastructure. So again, it's not transshipment. When we talk about, for example, new energies, industrial growth,
Right.
then the whole ecosystem is there. It's not, it's not only logistics, right? So the conventional energy is there. The renewable energy and the corridors, it's already coming, and it's increasing. It's in the master plan. It's in our master plan. We are also establishing, or the GCC countries, at least in the recent workshop, saw a need to establish a green shipment corridor,
Right.
because of the successes in Sohar, and they see Sohar as an anchor port, and again, that's based on the shore power, that's based on the LNG bunkering, and that's based on the renewables that will be connected, right? And that's based on the biofuels that we use on our tugboats, right? So all of these put together in the equation makes Sohar as a really leading, sustainable kind of, I would say, a pioneer in the region. So they see that Sohar could be a very good starting point for this green corridor, moving on to some of the UAE ports, Qatar and Kuwait, right? So indeed, again, this is a distinctive nature of Sohar. Infrastructure is important in industrial ports. People talk about getting more renewables, establishing hydrogen, but unless there is that infrastructure and that ecosystem, then it would take not only time, but also a lot of stakeholder management and millions/billions of dollars, right? So that's already in Sohar.
Right. And that's, you just touched on a critical element, and maybe one of the concerns today. Let's face it, in Europe, there is a moment of depression about low carbon hydrogen. I call it that way for better terms. China is booming about green hydrogen. The Middle East is keen to develop that. So what is interesting is one of the key elements is to have infrastructure at the disposal of any of those projects. So you've secured that. You've helped Oman secure that in terms of the port of Sohar. So that's great. We're going to change gears a little bit and dive a bit deeper in the green hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen, renewable hydrogen, whatever we want to call it. Let's call it low carbon hydrogen. And that will encompasses the blue hydrogen as well with carbon capture. So I like that. So I'd like to get your thoughts specifically on the vision of the port of Sohar as far as hydrogen. We've heard about Duqm, we've heard about Salalah, Auction 1, Auction 2, now Auction 3 coming along under the Hydrom orchestrator. That's all great and perfect, and that's basically setting the platform and the framework for the green hydrogen to develop. But Sohar is there. Sohar has hydrogen consumers. There is a refinery, petrochemical, there is a steel factory, having a DRI process unit and so on. So there are the usual users, let's say. And then there is growth. As you said, there is an aggressive growth plan with an overlay of decarbonization strategy around that. So you're ready for growing with your lenders and users. So specifically on the hydrogen side, I'd like to get your thoughts on how you see Sohar playing a role and what kind of role that's going to be.
Very interesting. I'll start with a bit macro scale. So Oman is currently the third largest producer of hydrogen in the region. So hydrogen in many ways is not new to us. So there's a lot of expertise already established, and the chunk majority of that is in Sohar, right? In the industries that you've stated, Lionel. So Sohar is already a demand hub. It's a demand center, an expertise for hydrogen that indeed we can leverage upon. Now, switchability or decarbonizing the existing hydrogen production units is a kind of a no-brainer, is the way forward. Decarbonization will be through the CCUS or plugging in renewables, right? And then switchability with the green hydrogen or maybe white hydrogen.
Yep.
Right. So let me start with this with the decarbonization. So capturing the CO2, what we're doing. We've established a capture consortia made up of Air Liquide, Sumitomo, OQAE, and obviously us, to really explore the opportunity of setting up an ecosystem for capture in the port, right? So looking at what kind of technologies that would be needed to capture CO2 from this company or that company, depending on the compositions and many other technical requirements. So that's on the capture side at the port. And then we've also worked very closely with OQ Gas Networks to see what we can do with that captured gas. So i.e. transporting the gas in a pipeline to some of the oil and gas fields, ultimately maybe for usage first and then for storage. So that's I would say the kind of 85% of the work of the studies, conceptual frameworks is already done. We're now working to bring the two pieces together, seeing where could be a good start for us. From what the numbers are saying to us now is we see a 2 million tons of CO2 capture facility by 2030 is kind of a good way forward.
Right.
So that's on the capture side, and that's converting the gray hydrogen to blue. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're plugging more renewables into the facilities. So that would be blue hydrogen. Now, coming back to the switchability, we are also very interested in the white hydrogen. That's the geologic hydrogen. And according to the studies and the analysis that were done by the experts and academics, that Oman is one of those, or could be one of those blessed places in the world to have deposits for natural hydrogen. Some of the companies that were given the permits from the Ministry of Energy and Minerals to explore white hydrogen are really active, and with some of them we have signed partnership agreements with. So we are keeping a kind of all the cards on the table for white hydrogen, and if that comes, I think it will be a game changer for Sohar, for Oman.
Excellent.
For green hydrogen, obviously we have a big stake, big interest, and we're also exploring with the stakeholders, including the government, of how can we start positioning ourselves for green hydrogen. We've got already demand, and obviously, we envision that Sohar will be a green hydrogen hub in Oman, because obviously that's what the numbers are saying. Yep. And for that, we intend to start with really small scale, with some of the small scale projects, so that we develop the learning curve, and maybe getting some of the electrolyzers connected to the grid. We're finalizing an investment case as we speak. So connecting in the orders of 80 to 100 megawatts electrolyzers connected to the grid, producing hydrogen around the clock, and then sending that hydrogen to some of the industries in the port, right? So that eliminates the intermittency of the renewables, mm-hmm. that de-risks the investment, because again, the renewables, it's an investment by itself. Mm-hmm. And if we put renewables, then you may be also looking at storage. So connecting to the grid is already 11% renewable. It will only increase with time. So it'll be 30% by 2030. We can get some certificates, right? Yep. Getting certificates, the electrolyzer is already connected to the grid. That provides a stable flow to the end user. So with that, we provide assurance, credibility that their facilities will not be impacted. So we have also established partnership with a Swiss consortia from Switzerland, looking into and exploring ways to establish a green corridor between Oman and Switzerland. After all, we share our neutrality targets, and there is the framework agreement that was signed between the government of Oman and the government of Switzerland, 2023. Okay. And there was an implementation, also a roadmap. So we're trying to really work along the lines of that implementation roadmap and develop projects accordingly. So, but ultimately, for us, hydrogen is a strategic commodity. We've got now a lot of industries. We've got the LNG bunkering. Next is methanation for us. So we've gone into the methanation, right? And hopefully with the establishment of the biofuel industries, we'll got some biogenic CO2 that we can use in the creation of SAF or any other fuels. Right. So that's basically our line of sight. But indeed, we're really keeping a lot of our agenda, a lot of our time focused on hydrogen.
Okay, that's excellent because that's very consistent with what you obviously said at the beginning, which is you're an integrated industrial cluster. So hydrogen is a building block, is not the only building block, and it comes within the portfolio of energy at the disposal or under development in the port. So that's good. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit. You touch on partnership, and the Port of Sohar, by definition, is a partnership between the Netherlands and Oman. So you have that, or the port has that in their DNA to partner and leverage each other's knowledge and experience and so on. You touch on the Swiss partnership. You touch on the fact that there are some technology partnership on hydropower and so on. Any other partnership that with Asia, for example, that which are defined and becomes target for receiving low carbon energy from Oman in the future? And I'm thinking about South Korea, potentially Japan, and maybe China as well. China being a very important trading partner for energy to Oman. So looking east from here, actually, what would be, or what are the strategic partnership that, if you can share that with us?
Right. No, indeed. So that kind of starting partnership with the Netherlands through the Port of Rotterdam. Again, the local partnership in Oman is the Sohar Net Zero Alliance. So that's a big alliance to really establish a common goal and define a common goal and implement a common goal, which is decarbonization. We've also joined AFID, Alliance for Industry Decarbonization, which is a global network of more than 80 investment institutions, technology providers, service providers, ports and industrial areas. We continue to engage with them to understand the best practices. And we're establishing, obviously, the partnership with the Swiss. We've got a lot of partnerships existing as we speak today to trade the commodities that we produce, be it energy products, but also other industrial products. And that extends from Europe all the way to the Far East. So anything that we decarbonize ultimately will end up in those existing markets for us. But also, we are in serious talks with the Far East. You mentioned those target countries, Japan, South Korea, and China. We are in serious talks. They're really interested to leverage upon Sohar Port for the reasons that we've discussed. Indeed, everybody sees Sohar as an early mover, as a conversion-ready port, as a forward-thinking industrial institution. So with that, we're getting a lot of traction, and we are exploring all the options while we're really focusing on strengthening the competitiveness and contestability in what we're doing. So indeed, that's, I cannot give names and countries, but indeed, until something is consolidated.
That's great, Dr. Abdullah. That's I think you've done what the French call the tour de force to actually give us an overview of what's existing, the ambition of the Port of Sohar, the perspective looking forward. I think that's extremely informative, and to me, no surprise here, but it's really great to hear that a port that has grown so fast and so much over the last 20 years has ambitions to even grow further and contribute even more to the decarbonization strategy. You've mentioned a number of organizations, platforms, partners on that, so that's great. I think we're coming toward the end of our talk. I'd like to you to maybe give you an opportunity to close this talk by maybe referring to one or 2 points that you want the listeners to go away with, think about, and in particular in the context of attracting them to the Green Hydrogen Summit Oman that will take place from the 30th of November to the 4th of December this year. So what would you tell them? And considering that the listeners could be non-specialists to highly specialized experts, so broad range of audience here.
So the time goes so fast, huh? But indeed, what I would give to the to the listeners that if you're coming this year, then welcome again. We and I personally look forward to seeing you at the Hydrogen Summit, and I'm confident that you made the right decision. If you are still hesitant or it's still not in the plans, then think twice or maybe 3 times. Because indeed, Oman has a lot to offer. Speaking about green hydrogen, then then renewables is what makes the green green in the first place. And renewables is what contributes or constitutes 70% of the cost. And in Oman, according to the IEA, Oman is one of the best places in the world that has renewables in a kind of complementary way. So that's wind and solar plus a few other resources. So in Oman, as I always say, sunshine is not a slogan. Mm-hmm. It's rather a cost curve, and that's why it keeps dropping, and that also impacts the production cost of hydrogen. So again, I invite you all to really come to Oman because there is a lot to offer on green hydrogen. And secondly, I invite you all to also explore the opportunities in Sohar because it's just progress. It's in motion. Yeah, the switch is on. It's a plug and play, and there is a lot that we need and we can leverage upon. So we're really keen that you come and see for yourselves the established industrial ecosystem and how we can get new partnerships moving. So that's basically my 2 key messages that I'd like to pass on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So the key message I would probably to wrap that up is come to Oman in early December, but visit Sohar as well.
Yes, definitely.
Because you'll be only a couple of hours away from Sohar once you're at the GHSO. So thank you so much, Dr. Abdullah, for coming today.
Thank you, Lionel. It's really interesting. It's really a nice exchange.
Thank you, and equally here, I feel the same. Thank you very much. And to the listeners of the Energy Talks, so this was Dr. Abdullah Al Abri, Vice President of Sustainability of the Sohar Port and Freezone Company. This closes this episode. Thank you to the sponsor, iSafety, and see you at the next one. Thank you, bye.